Hi all, thanks so much again for joining. We'll get started in a minute. Let us know where you're calling in from this evening in the chat. Thanks all so much. I love the active chat going on here. Definitely feel free to use it as we continue on into the program to offer up any questions in the Q&A and to let us know where you're calling in from and any other information you'd like to share with us today. So I think we're going to get us started, as I know we have a packed agenda for this evening's call. So hi everyone and good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Iman Abid and I'm the Director of Advocacy and Organizing with the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. I want to begin by thanking the hundreds of you who are joining us for our call this evening and for your constant support for our overall movement towards collective liberation. We all know that we are now over 191 days since the assaults on Gaza have begun, losing more than 30,000 Palestinians and 13,000 of them of which are children. We watched children evade the direct killing by an airstrike, but then only to die by being crushed to death by parachutes bringing down aid. For Palestinians near and far, we've always understood that our liberation is intertwined with the collapse of occupation, divestment from militarism, and the deconstruction of Zionism. And for the last 6.5 months, many more years counting, a lot of you have joined alongside us as we are trying to convince the world, and most importantly, the US administration and Congress, that the only path to stopping this genocide is by pushing Israel to a total and permanent ceasefire and to demand that all forms of US military funding to Israel end immediately. While the tides continue to turn, we know that the work is far from over. And while we know that our movement is growing, it is crucial that the demands we have made repeatedly now over the last 6.5 months do not go unnoticed and no compromise get made. From the halls of Capitol Hill to the streets of the San Francisco Bay Bridge, our demands have been made clear since day one. Across the movement, we have watched how organizations and individuals have pulled together to center the same principles. Divestment from militarization in all forms is necessary in order to protect all our communities. The Palestinian struggle has always understood that the path for our total freedom is integrated heavily into the freedom of all oppressed people. And there are so many incredible leaders across Turtle Island and beyond who have shown up to destroy the walls of oppression and apartheid and have been building up divestment campaigns now for years. You are all here joining us today for our first of an ongoing series of mass movement calls, building a space in which we want to welcome all of you who have taken action, whether for the first time or the 100th time, to join us for a conversation on what it truly means to end US military funding to Israel. In the course of today's discussion, we will examine a number of case studies brought up from places like Texas, Illinois, and California that have built up vital campaigns to divest from the state of Israel. We know that militarization shows up in all forms, be it policies sending arms transfers that are passed by Capitol Hill, or subsidized weapons manufacturers that have supported in building the weapons that have been sent to Israel throughout the midst of this genocide and beyond. Our calls will give folks an opportunity to learn more about what work is currently ongoing, what it takes to build up a campaign of your own in your own city, and how you can join efforts collectively to ensure that our demands never go unmet. You'll also get a glimpse into how and what is currently happening on the ground in Palestine and what is happening in Congress, as well as a glimpse into our USCPR resources and toolkits that we hope you can use to build out your own campaigns. Overall, this space will be a way for us to move forward together and to ensure that we understand that we never move forward in this work alone, but rather collectively with complete support from one another. We are joined today by a number of incredible people. The first is Malak Afane, who is a UC Berkeley student who was part of a coalition helping lead the divestment resolution efforts at their campus. We are also joined by Ramon Mejia, who is an anti-militarism national organizer at Grassroots Global Justice Alliance, of whom is helping build up and lead the work in their Invest Divest campaigns. And Jose, who is a national field director with Dissenters, who has been working tirelessly across Chicago, targeting the role of weapons manufacturers. We are also joined by my incredible colleagues, Mohammed Khadir, our Manager of Policy and Advocacy Campaigns, and Celine Kusini, our National Field Organizer. We want to make sure that everyone understands what it is that we're about to step into today. So to kick us off, we want to quickly review what's been happening over the course of the last few days out of Palestine and what Israel's actions have led us to. We will then move into hearing from our panelists and the range of work they have all been pursuing. And we will end with a review of our resource action page, as well as taking 5 minutes to take action together. With that, I'm going to kick it to my colleague, Mohammed, to get us started on the lay of the land and what's been going on right now.
Thank you, Iman. Yes, right now we're seeing a lot of escalations and a lot of concerns happening on the ground in Palestine right now. In the West Bank, we're seeing settlers ravage entire villages, entire communities. We're seeing in Gaza continued destruction, uncovering of mass graves, destruction of public health facilities, and targeting Palestinians seeking to return to their homes in northern Gaza, where famine is continuing to unfold. And we're also seeing broader regional concerns. Right now, you have an Israeli government that is continuing a path of destruction and chaos in the region and continuing its genocide in Gaza. At the same time, we're seeing lawmakers in the US continue to provide weapons to Israel. At the moment, Speaker of the House Johnson is seeking to propose more weapons to Israel through supplemental funding that will provide $14 billion or more to Israel in offensive weapons that it's using to kill Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, and in Israel. Right now, we're also seeing Congress weaponize what's happening in the region to attack Palestinians, to attack people who have nothing to do with what's going on. And we're also seeing broader xenophobia within Congress right now. In addition, we're seeing continued collaboration between the Israeli military and the Israeli settlers in the West Bank that are on a spree and a campaign targeting Palestinians in their homes, burning cars and villages, and seeking to completely destroy entire areas of the West Bank. For us at USCPR, we will continue to uplift what is happening by sharing real-time updates, also sharing overviews of what we see on the ground. But we're also broadly concerned with the direction that things are heading. And we're continuing to uplift the voice of Palestinians, not just on the ground, but also those in the diaspora, those in across the US who are also in the districts that are being directly led to push these pieces of legislation. But I'll just wrap here. We're seeing a very concerning trajectory. We've been ringing the alarm for months now, but Congress is still determined to deepen the U.S. role in Israel's genocide in Gaza, but also expand Israel's role in the West Bank and the region. So everybody on the call, we appreciate everything, and we'll continue to keep pushing. But for us right now, we're very concerned, and we'll be paying attention to developments. I'll pass it back to Emma.
Iman, you're on mute.
Just realized that. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Mohammed, for offering us up those updates. As we all understand, things are changing. There's developments happening left and right. As we want to make sure that everyone's informed on why the demands are what they are in this moment. I want to pass it off to get us I want to kick us off with the panel here shortly and remind us that, again, please make sure that if you have any questions or any of that, to use the Q&A format. I know Mohammed just shared a lot, and there will be a lot shared on this call today. We hope to spend a couple of minutes on the Q&A towards the end of this discussion. So please feel free to do that. But otherwise, feel free to comment and leave any of your thoughts and whatever's coming up for you in the chat as well, so that we ensure that, again, this is a conversation we'd like to all have together. To kick us off with, again, the number of incredible case studies that are going to be presented by my colleagues here. I want to start off by welcoming Malak Afana, who has been tremendously leading and has been just such a fierce leader in this moment at UC Berkeley and doing all that they can to make sure that our voices never go unnoticed. And so, Malak, we welcome you with all that you carry in this moment. And we are really excited to hear more about your divestment work that you've been doing at UC Berkeley, and to actually give folks an opportunity to also feel inspired in doing it on their own across campuses and different institutions. So with that, I'll pass it to you, Malak.
Thank you so much, Iman, for those kind words, and thank you so much to everyone for being here. I just want to start off by saying that what I have to say is a little unprecedented, I feel, in terms of activism in this very moment. So again, my name is Malak Afana. I'm the proud daughter of Palestinian immigrants from Abu Ghosh and Al Khalil, and co-president of Berkeley Law Students for Justice in Palestine. I've been doing this work for a while, but many of you may have seen that on April 9th, I was in fact actually assaulted by Berkeley law professor Catherine Fisk at a university-funded school-sponsored dinner held for all third-year law students. The dinner, which speaks to our greater divestment work and why we need to have it happen, was held on the last day of Ramadan, and it was a gross and extravagant display of wealth at a time when the UC system is complicit in funding this genocide, and a time when Palestinians are dying of starvation. So while videos of me have circulated, have only focused on the first 30 seconds of my speech, I thought it was important and necessary to use this moment to say the rest of that speech and to highlight my primary and ultimate purpose for going to this event and engaging in this activism in the first place, which is to demand utter and complete UC divestment from any entity complicit in apartheid. So I know this is a little untraditional, but I thought it would be appropriate to start off by saying that speech. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings on you all. Tonight, we are gathered here in the name of commemorating our final few weeks as law students. Tonight is also the last night of the holy month of Ramadan. But while we are eating, Palestinians in this moment are starving and being killed by the very weapons that UC Berkeley uses our tuition money to fund. The University of California has invested over $2 billion into weapons manufacturers, including companies like Boeing, BlackRock, Lockheed Martin, and many more. Boeing has supplied the apartheid regime with F-15 fighter jets and small diameter bombs, which were used on November 1st to bomb Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp, killing hundreds. Our tuition money has also contributed to the cold-blooded murder of over 33,634 Palestinians, with the numbers likely being higher, with people still being trapped under the rubble and missing. We cannot and will not sit here in good conscience and break our fast on the blood of our people, for doing so would mean we are okay with the UC's complicity in this genocide. I call upon you to elevate your peers' demands that the UC divest from its contracts with weapons manufacturers. This speech was not my first time advocating for UC divestment, however. Last year, I drafted a pro-BDS bylaw that all student organizations at the law school could choose to adopt. This bylaw was 3 parts, in that it asked student organizations to 1, avoid using any student funds towards any entity complicit in apartheid, 2, not invite Zionist speakers to events, and 3, mandate that the board of these organizations attend a mandatory Palestine 101 training. What was different about the bylaw approach was that I had noticed in my college years that what would often occur was students would spend a lot of time and energy mobilizing for a divestment resolution to be passed in their student government, only for the president of their college to then veto it, and all momentum would die out. Our student government at the law school was largely uninformed, and I knew that divestment would not be achieved through those means. So I realized that each student organization, in order to be recognized as a registered org, must have a set of bylaws. By asking groups to adopt a pro-BDS bylaw then, the dean of our law school and our administration could not veto it or have any say in the matter, because each organization would adopt it democratically through their own student votes. Naturally, we faced considerable backlash from right-wing Zionist entities for this bylaw. We had trucks going around with student organizers' names on it, labeling them as Berkeley Law's anti-Semitic class of 2023. We even had these trucks be sent to our home addresses. One of our organizers is from Texas, and a trunk was sent to her home address out of state to try to intimidate her loved ones. We even had the dean of our law school threaten to sanction students that vocalized support for this bylaw and attempted to take away academic credit for any law journals that refused to publish Zionist authors. Despite this backlash, we had around a third of student organizations at the law school adopt the bylaw, with not a single organization repealing it. We also had the National Lawyers Guild and all of its chapters adopt it. We've also had multiple law school SJPs, including NYU and New Orleans and Loyola Law SJP, among others, adopting a similar bylaw. For students that attend openly Zionist institutions, divestment is one of the most important campaigns SJPs and the like can pursue. As a Palestinian, there is nothing more painful than knowing that it is my tuition money that goes to providing the very weapons that kill my people in Palestine. As a student at Berkeley Law, not only does our school have many contracts with weapons arms manufacturers, but they have also accepted donations to have a Helen Diller Institute for Jewish Law and Israeli Studies, a center that funds study abroad programs to stolen land while Palestinians are expelled from their villages. This same center is funded by the same Zionist donor that donated to fund Canary Mission, a right-wing doxing website. One thing I would like to note is that while many SJPs have been successful in passing divestment resolutions, whether it be at UC Davis SJP, among many others, other schools do not have the same level of activism and the same majority in numbers that is present at these institutions. That's why I think that this bylaw is a very unique approach, and one that I encourage many to adopt at their prospective schools, especially if their student government and especially if the resolutions that are passed as a student senate can be vetoed by the president and administration of the college. A bylaw that is democratically adopted and voted upon by its students shows the school that it is their students that are choosing to stand against genocide, even if their administration chooses not to. So I leave you with this. There is no inappropriate time to talk about Palestine. It is our collective responsibility to insert the word Palestine everywhere, in our workspaces, at school dinners, and every platform possible until Palestine is free. Thank you so much.
Medic, you are truly the embodiment of resilience and fierceness, and it's just absolutely astounding. And just know that we are all with you. We are all standing beside you. And for you to come out on this specific day, just so soon after the incident of what's been happening to you and going viral right now, just know that we are always standing alongside you, and that this aggression against you in any way is never, ever legitimized and never justified. And so we stand with you. We got you. Just know we got your back always and forever. And as y'all just heard from Medek, like a true example of what it actually also takes for our universities to play a role in the demilitarization here. There are clear divestment resolutions that can get passed, and many other universities have taken the same sort of road. And so we encourage folks, and we'll get a chance to actually look at it a little later. We have a resource kit that helps folks kind of take the opportunity to start asking these same questions that folks like Medek have been asking in their own universities, and seeing if there are other opportunities and avenues to build up in your own localities. So thank you, Medek, for joining us, and we really appreciate you today.
Of course, thank you so much.
I want to continue on with our incredible panel. As y'all just heard from Medek, we also are joined by Ramon, who is the Anti-Militarism National Organizer at the Grassroots Global Justice Alliance, and has just been doing incredible work for more than a decade. As someone who has been working with About Face, Veterans Against War, you've been working with GJJ, Ramon, you've been everywhere. And as someone that I've seen almost nonstop every couple of weeks, these last 6.5 months, I just truly know that if Ramon's in the room, I know that the work is going to get done and the work is going to get pushed. And so I'm really excited for folks to hear more from Ramon and what they've been doing and the work that's been unfolding here with the Invest Divest campaign that's popping out of GGJ. And just, again, getting the chance to learn and look into what exactly is popping up, what's evolving, and what's possible. So with that, I'm going to hand it to Ramon, and thank you so much for joining us again today.
No, thank you so much for the invitation. You know, 57 years ago, this past April 4th, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech at Riverside Church condemning the U.S. war on Vietnam, warning, quote, a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. You know, Dr. King reinforced this connection between war abroad and the war at home when he went on to say that, quote, I speak for those whose land is being laid waste, whose homes are being destroyed, whose culture is being subverted. I speak for the poor of America who are paying the double price of smashed hopes at home and death and corruption abroad. Some of this might be a repeat for a lot that are watching this Zoom, but it's important to keep repeating and why it is important to learn about the impacts of U.S. militarism and why it's critically important to oppose U.S. war and occupation in order to stop the theft of our communities, but also in the immediate, to end genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Again, my name is Ramon Mejia, and I'm the Anti-Militarism National Organizer with Grassroots Global Justice Alliance. We're made up of over 60 community organizations across Turtle Island, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Guahan. We're led by poor and working class communities engaged in a long-term relationship building and political, engaging around political and strategic analysis. We were born out of the World Social Forum process that the idea was for us to build a movement vehicle within the belly of the beast that we were needed in order to connect with social movements outside of the U.S. And since our inception, over 1,000 GGJ members and grassroots organizers have gone on delegations, have returned inspired, more politically developed, and implementing lessons that they've learned into their local campaigns and communities. As Iman said, I myself come out of GGJ's membership as part of About Face Veterans Against the War, someone who was a tool of U.S. imperialism as part of the U.S. Marines. I participated in the U.S. invasion of Iraq. And from that moment until this moment, I've used my knowledge and experiences within the military to expose the truth about U.S. war and occupation and the growing militarization that we're facing here in our communities at home. And what I've come to understand, both as a member and now as an organizer with GGJ, is that that together, it's going to happen together, that we can bridge the gap between the local and the global movements and pave a way for a shift from an economy that's rooted in extraction and war to an economy that's rooted in the regenerative power of people and communities. With each day that passes, it becomes even more vital to break out of the silos that we find ourselves in, to join movements, not only across Turtle Island, but around the world, in demanding that there be a new way to approach our economy, because, business as usual is destroying our people on the planet. These systems that look to destroy us are international, and thus, those of us who are here within the belly of the beast, we're not outside of this international movement. We are part of it, and they're calling us to be a part of this of the struggle to oppose war and empire abroad. And to bring it more closely to the campaign that we've been developing, since 2022, at our membership assembly, our members had moved to adopt a national transformative campaign to address the climate conjecture and directly fight back against fascism. We were a convergence vehicle, and now they're wanting to build, our members are wanting to build a campaigning alliance. So we have been tasked with taking the step toward our vision of a feminist regenerative economy by demanding grassroots frontline-led vehicle to change the balance of forces on issues around the intersection of climate, demilitarization, and grassroots feminisms. GGJ, we're building this transformative campaign. It is not easy. But it's one that needs to be rooted in the front line in grassroots communities, because that is where the solutions will lie in. So we've spent over the last year really digging into these questions of where we are best positioned as GGJ to advance and campaign that, one, brings together the different sectors of the grassroots movements inside of Alliance, that it, two, be relevant to the current moment and the scale of intersecting crises our communities are facing, and three, making sure that GGJ members have a strategic contribution to make. We understand that we must radically transform our world. And as someone who joined the U.S. military, believing that there were no other options to provide for my family. Imagine if instead of military recruiters asking me to join this U.S. war machine, there were recruiting for industries transitioning away from fossil fuels or war and, to systems of care and regeneration. The United States has the ability to end these harmful relationships and technologies if it had the political will. Millions of people across our communities are without access to education, housing, healthcare, all foundational elements in building healthy, vibrant communities are forced to look on as billions of dollars are squandered to line the pockets of weapons manufacturers and to see our fellow community members and our siblings to be killed overseas. We are told that to achieve security, we must support vital institutions like the military, police, and prisons. But even when they failed to deliver on this so-called promise of peace and safety time and time again, we understand that this economy is not about peace and safety, but it thrives on destruction, domination, and death. For too long, the military has been an assumed good without an unquestioned, forever expanding budget. But the tides are changing, and people are interrogating this story that violence can't create safety, because it can't. We must change the story on safety and that we can divest from harmful institutions and reinvest in care-centered ones. So that is why GGJ is building out this campaign. Together we can change the story. We can transform our economy. We can divest from war and prioritize justice. We can change this rhetoric that anti-Zionism is the same as anti-Semitism when it's not. And we can realize a ceasefire and a justice for the people of Palestine. This week we are on the ground in Atlanta for our Divest from Harm and Invest in Care Assembly to refine the focus of our developing campaign with members, movement allies, funders. Together we will explore the harmful ways that money is invested in our economy, and how to fund the resources that our communities actually need. And if you are in Atlanta, join us, GGJ, BOLD, the Movement for Black Lives, U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, Dissenters, this Friday, April 19th at 2:30 p.m. at the Atlanta City Hall, along with frontline leaders and organizers from across Turtle Island, to demand a free Palestine and an end to all cop cities everywhere. Our communities understand the deadly connections between that Atlanta Police Department, Israel's occupation of Palestine, and the global struggle for collective liberation. Let us center justice, liberation, accountability, and reparations in collective care. The time has come to support solutions, and those the solutions that come from the front lines, demanding that we ensure the survival of people and the land because it demands it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ramon. I just want to quote something that Ramon said at the very beginning of their speech, remarks, and it's calling that the world is calling us to oppose empire and war abroad. And so it's not to think of these issues as something that's so far away and, distancing itself from us, but rather it's an issue that's integrated heavily in what it is that we are all seeing here domestically. And then the call for building out transformative campaigns that are rooted in grassroots community intersectionality. Ramon, you touched on that beautifully. And it's I saw a question in the chat that said, we know the problems, but what is the solution? And I think, again, like touching on something that Ramon just said, is that it is our job to build up these campaigns that actually build up the educational blocks to shift political will. It's not that we don't know what the solutions are. We just got to make sure that more people are aware of what's happening. And y'all even joining for this call today collectively is helping us move forward in that space. My hope is that as folks hear more of this information, we can go back into our own communities and start sharing this out. Again, there are ways in which we can start divesting. There are ways in which we can start building out. And you don't have to start from scratch. There are incredible organizations like GGJ, UC Berkeley, SJP, all the folks that have been doing the incredible work. And we're also about to hear from Jose, who's from Dissenters, who's been doing a great job as well. And, just making sure that we're targeting all these different institutions that are playing a part in the militarization. So with that, thank you again, Ramon, for joining us for there. And if you guys have any questions or want to shoot some, I see some incredible comments. I love the love. I love the affirmation. We know we all need it. We need to feel it. We're in this for the long haul. And so I just really appreciate all the support that's coming our way towards the panelists here as well. And again, just excited as well to have Jose you have been doing incredible work for years as well, just as a cross-movement leader, fighting, you know, not just militarism, but also being able to address policing, to be able to provide, you know, additional support for immigrant communities, you know, in Chicago and beyond. You've been doing the work, and dissenters has been out there up in front, risking their lives, doing everything that they possibly can as well. So we just want to shout out to you and the rest of your organization who have been doing phenomenal work, and everyone who's under that umbrella of work as well. But Jose, you have been targeting weapons manufacturers, and I think there's a lot for people to learn around that too. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to you to kind of share a little bit more around what work y'all have been pursuing.
Yeah, thank you, Aman. First, I just want to start off by echoing what you said. Even today, we've seen members of dissenters across Turtle Island taking action to attack the economic capabilities of the imperial core that we are in, right? It is our duty in the belly of the beast to tackle, you know, in any way possible, right? So once again, my name is Josue Sican. I am a national field organizer with dissenters. Prior to that, I was part of our local campaign, the Boeing Arms Genocide campaign, which I will be talking a bit more about. I'll start off by saying I am the son of Guatemalan immigrants, right? Immigrants who have felt the ripples of US intervention that has been scattered across the globe for decades, for centuries. And those very ripples are the reasons that I am here today, right? They're the reason my parents are here today. And one of the ways that this happens is through military intervention. And one of those enablers is the Boeing Company. The Boeing Company, well, I'll start off with, in May of 2021, there were actually escalated assaults on Sheikh Jarrah, a neighborhood in East Jerusalem. And in the midst of this, the State Department approved a weapon sale of $735 million from Boeing to the State of Israel. This moved community organizers in Chicago to make a banner drop with 3 simple words that said, Boeing arms genocide. And Boeing continues to arm genocide, but in this moment, we were taking the opportunity to highlight the fact that the Boeing Corporation was headquartered in our city, and that we would not allow the company to continue to enable the genocide of Palestinians. This, for me and for many others, was actually the first time we really realized the strategic target we actually had in front of us. It was also a time for many of us to learn that actually in 2001, the city of Chicago signed a contract with the Boeing Corporation that was slated to give $40 million in tax reimbursements to Boeing in exchange for building and creating 500 jobs for Chicagoans. 20 years later, we took this action and decided that it would not be a one-time thing, but that it would actually be a start to a larger campaign that would aim to make sure that the Boeing headquarters contract would not be renewed any further, and to make sure that no more public dollars were being used to line the pockets of Boeing, and that actually this money could be used in countless other ways to support Black and Brown communities in our city, right? To give an example, in 2012, the city fired 172 librarians and cut the operating hours of these libraries by approximately half to save approximately $3 million. In that same year, they closed half the mental health clinics in the city to save $2.2 million. And the following year, the city closed 50 schools in predominantly Black and Brown neighborhoods, citing financial reasons, amongst other things. In 2012, Boeing received a tax reimbursement of $1.3 million, supposedly making these 500 jobs available to Chicagoans, which we later learned that many of these jobs were actually not new jobs, but were actually existing jobs, and people, current Boeing employees, actually moved to Chicago to continue their roles. So job creation was not actually true. And whether or not these jobs were created, it still does not justify the enabling of occupation, of death and destruction, not only in Palestine, but in Yemen, in the Philippines, on our border, on our US-Mexican border. And so this really turned into a long-term campaign that really had a few targets. One of the targets was the general public. Just like many of us organizers were not aware, the general public was not aware that the city was giving millions of dollars, the total amount being $63 million over a 20-year period to the Boeing Corporation, instead of it going, to fund education, to fund housing, to fund public works for Chicagoans. A second part of the campaign was targeting the city and its administrators. For us, this looked like doing robust research and looking in every corner to find ways we could target this contract and make sure it was not renewed or nothing similar was passed. We ended up presenting to Alderwoman Haddon and to the Office of the Inspector General about the many, many ways that this money could be used instead, and actually that the Boeing Corporation was not meeting the very low bar that they had set for themselves of 500 jobs. During this time, we learned of not an investigation, but a report by a journalist that was saying that the space was empty. They were not occupying the space, which is one of the stipulations of this contract. They were not meeting the 500 jobs that they had promised. And bringing this to the Office of the Inspector General sparked an inquiry. It sparked an inquiry that culminated with us learning through a Freedom of Information Act that Boeing was not going to be pursuing their final tax reimbursement, which would have amounted to approximately $2 million. They declined this final payment, and then in May of 2022, we learned that the Boeing Corporation would be moving their headquarters out of the city of Chicago, right? And what we learned here was that pressure is important, but our pressure has to be targeted, and our pressure has to be strategic, and that we must leave no stone unturned to find that leverage point that will allow us to get these wins. Another lesson we learned is that we must continue the momentum that we create and make sure it does not die down. Instead of sunsetting our campaign, we actually chose to pivot to a weapons facility, a Boeing weapons facility that is actually currently under construction in Mascoutah, Illinois. And now the state is funding its construction with over $8 million, again, in tax reimbursements. And so I end by asking you all to follow the Boeing Arms Genocide campaign on our socials. If you are in Illinois, I invite you to sign our petition and to make sure that no more of our public dollars go to lining the pockets of Boeing, because we know that they just export death and destruction to every corner of the planet in the name of profit. We also invite you to follow dissenters on socials as we're continuing to build power off campus. We hope to see more campaigns, that are similar to this one, and hope to achieve more wins, apply more pressure, and also just build better organizers. Yeah, thank you again for your time. And, we'll see you out there on the streets.
Thank you so much, Jose. You outlined just why Boeing sucks and why it's extremely important to have these strategic and very targeted campaigns. And I think that, again, you were really spitting facts. You were letting us know what specific role Boeing was playing in Chicago, and just how these sorts of institutions, these companies are never there to, benefit their employees or to support the communities. As we know, oftentimes these sorts of folks kind of go into the community and say, They're just here to explicitly profit off of war, death, and destruction. That's exactly what these organizations have been built up to do. It's why they're privatized. It's why they're built off in this way. That's why they're subsidized, all these sorts of things. And so it's extremely critical that when we're talking about demilitarizing, we're talking about specific targets. And I think what Dissenters has been doing, what Jose has been doing, is a true example of what a strategic targeted campaign looks like. So make sure you follow Dissenters for their up and coming information on the Boeing campaign. We'll make sure I think hopefully say maybe you can drop the website around the Boeing website into the chat for folks to see. But again, Boeing exists in many of our regions. This is not just in Chicago. So it's something that we can pick up in different places as well. And so appreciate you for being here, sharing with us, teaching everyone what's going on, and just kind of really educating the movement on what and how to proceed. I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Celine, who's going to actually give us a chance to now look into some of the resources that we've made available at the US campaign so that people kind of understand more of how and what questions we should start asking ourselves when these sorts of ideas are being, thought of, being proposed. We understand that it's something that can oftentimes be, a little overwhelming. And so our job is to make sure that the information is streamlined, that we do our best to help you assess what you can pick up, what you can pursue, because we truly do need to move forward together. So with that, I'll pass it off to you, Celine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Celine, and I work alongside Iman at the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. So I want to go through with you all today is some resources that we would love to share with you all, including our Not My Tax Dollars website and multiple toolkits that we've created to support folks in organizing over the past several months. So if we could maybe start screen sharing the website for Not My Tax Dollars, I'll walk you all through some of the resources and the materials that we have on there. So some of the materials that we have on the website include the Not My Tax Dollars map. This is a map that you can plug in your information about the city and the state in which you live, and you can find out how much money from your city or state goes directly to military funding to Israel. And you can use that in your talking points for your speeches at your mobilizations. You can use that to draw attention to the fact that, to kind of localize Palestine as an issue when you're talking to people and communicating to them why this is actually really important for all of us to be aware of and for all of us to be agitated and organized around. So we do have this resource that you all can use to find out, again, exactly how much money goes from your city or state to military funding, and how much of that money could be used for other things. Like how much of that money could actually be used to fund to pay elementary school teachers in our public schools, or how much of that money could be used to cancel student loan debt. So we're kind of looking at this from an divest framework. So we need to be divesting the money that's being used to fund military aid to Israel, and we need to be reinvesting that into the things our communities actually need. And we also have on this website these coupons that you can use, and these coupons that you can use to actually pass out in your local community, or you can use it to flyer or poster where you can kind of plug in like exactly how much of your tax money is going to Israel, and again use it to kind of localize the issue. So we have these graphics and these materials that you all can use. This Fund Care Not Killing graphics, these tax day coupons that you can use in your community that you can print out to say, okay, the US is sending $3.8 billion to Israel for land theft, for colonization, for genocide, and for mass murder and ethnic cleansing. And this is how many people in the US actually need healthcare, or need public housing, or need their student debts canceled. So this is a tool that we think is really useful and has been really effective in our local campaigns, when we're speaking at city council meetings, when we're showing up to the mobilizations and to our protests. And then if we scroll down a little bit, we can also show you our Tax Day social media toolkit, Tax Day policy memo, and these are some additional toolkits for social media storm that you can all use today. Today has also been a day of action for many of us in many of our cities. We've seen multiple mobilizations. People are calling attention to the fact that they do not want their tax dollars spent on genocide or being sent to Israel for military funding. Today is also the strike for Gaza, and we saw that multiple businesses in Los Angeles and Orange County and Dallas, Texas, and New York, and many parts of the country have closed their doors to protest the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Students organized walkouts and protests today. And many people showed up in the streets at multiple different types of actions. And so it's really important that we actually use these materials in our protests, but also this is this social media toolkit that you can still use today to call attention to where you want your tax dollars to actually be used, and to call attention to the fact that we refuse to continue to remain silent in the face of our tax dollars being used to fund genocide. We can go scroll down a little bit lower. Yeah, so these are some of the actions that have been taking place today: the coordinated economic blockade to free Palestine that Josue spoke to a little bit, and today the strike for Gaza as well. And these are protest signs on the right here that you can actually print and download and print and use anytime in your actions for flyering, for wheat pasting. We have these up here on the website as well. And we'll scroll down and get into some of the toolkits. So we have also some additional materials that you can use. I've seen in the chats, some of you asked, like, I want to start a campaign for Palestine. I want to do something for Palestine, but some folks don't know kind of where to start. So we have some materials here. The first I want to bring attention to is the Stop Gaza Genocide Toolkit. The Stop Gaza Genocide Toolkit is a really comprehensive toolkit that we update on a really regular basis. It includes a bunch of links around like that we'll actually go through a little bit today, but it includes materials on how you can organize your own local phone banks, how you can organize different types of actions, how you can pressure your Congress member through bird dogging or other disruptive tactics. We have in there BDS stickers and flyers, wheat pasting guides, posters for printing, resources for high visibility actions, and just a bunch of materials. So it's like a very comprehensive list of kind of a menu of different types of tactics and efforts you can take up on a local level. And then in the middle here, we have the Host a Phone Zap Toolkit, which actually, so we've been hosting as US Campaign, and maybe some of you all have been on these power hours that we've been doing to jam the Congress's phone lines to make our demands around stop arming Israel and ending military funding. And so we've been doing those phone zaps on a national level. And so this toolkit is meant to be a resource that can help you organize your own phone zap on a local level in your own community and with your organizations. And we highly encourage you all to do this because it's a really easy way to gather the community and to take action for Palestine and to build pressure to target your elected representatives, especially if they haven't taken called for ceasefire or taken any position around Palestine to this point. And then we also have this opportunity to become a grassroots fundraiser to offset the impact of your tax dollars. So kind of encouraging people to become a grassroots fundraiser to power the movement for Palestinian rights. And then we'll scroll down a little bit more, trying to go through all these resources in a short amount of time. So we also have here two really great toolkits that we've been sharing and encouraging people to use also for organizing escalatory actions and targeting and organizing targeted direct action, specifically around politicians. So this is a guide that can help you if you, it includes also just like some questions you ask yourself like before you plan an action so that you can figure out, okay, is this what I should be doing on a local level? And then how do I do it? So in this guide for escalating to, escalatory actions, there's ideas for how you can organize a campaign event disruption, for example. How or why do you disrupt? Key strategy questions to ask yourself before disrupting an event. How do you choose a target? How do you set your goals? How do you do a risk assessment for your action? What are the things that you need to prepare, like having a checklist? What are the roles that you need to make sure that you have at your disruption or your action? How you can engage media? And examples, 7 examples of campaign and Democratic Party event disruptions that I'm sure you all have seen, but we've compiled them also in this toolkit. And then in our city council resolutions toolkit, really, again, highly encourage folks to look at this. I know many of you are organizing or are maybe showing up to local efforts in your cities to organize for a ceasefire resolution. And we'll also drop all the links in the chat for all of these materials and resources. But we know that some cities are even organizing for divestment resolutions. So we've been holding, as US Campaign, strategy meetings to help people organize locally to put pressure on city councils to pass a resolution. And so we have this toolkit here where we also have a bunch of resources on how you do that. So it has a ceasefire resolution tracker, types of ceasefire resolutions or types of city council resolutions, including a successful divestment resolution that was passed in Hayward, California. Takeaways from key case studies where we've actually convened the folks who've organized successful campaigns in their cities and learned from them and pulled main takeaways from their case studies, and we've integrated it into this toolkit. We also have a section on how do you navigate the challenges that we see most commonly popping up. We have a section on talking points that you can use in your city council mobilizations, and even talking points that you can use to kind of navigate opposition, or if you're meeting with a council member and you want to put pressure or push them to kind of take your side. And we also have a new section on divestment. So we've included a section on divestment here that kind of talks about 5 ways to divest. So, if you're organizing in your city, you might organize around divesting from Israel bonds, from tax breaks for corporations complicit in Zionist human rights violations. You might be organizing for a human rights investment policy, or against settlement funding from these quote unquote charitable organizations that are actually disguised as charities, but sending money to fund the illegal expansion of settlements in occupied Palestine. And we've also included tips for divestment resolution organizing. So that's all the materials. We've consolidated them onto this one website into Not My Tax Dollars. Highly encourage you to take a look. They're all there. I'll drop the link in the chat, and I'm sure my colleagues are also dropping the link in the chat now, but feel free to check it out. And if y'all have any questions, you can contact us. And we also do host, we're going to be hosting these calls throughout the coming several months, where we can discuss more in depth about many of these strategies that we're engaging. And then the last thing that I want to share is to invite you all to our Nakba Days of Action. We invite you to join us in Washington, D.C. on May 14th to the 15th for our Nakba Days of Action to stop arming Israel. And these days of actions are focused on the ongoing struggle to end U.S. military funding to Israel once and for all. So this year, we're commemorating 76 years of the ongoing Nakba, at a time in which Palestinians have now lived through a 6-month-long genocide. And in the midst of this devastation, we've seen people around the world rise up and build spaces and organizations to struggle towards Palestinian liberation. So we invite you all to come. You'll build power with movement organizers. You will learn about new tools to organize with your community and create pathways for ending U.S. military funding to Israel. And we encourage you to register by May 7th. And we'll drop that link in the chat as well. I'll pass it back to you, Iman. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Celine. I saw a comment in the chat that said this is a one-stop shop for all these incredible resources. And just the last few minutes that Celine spent on trying to review all the resources, it still doesn't even capture the information that is loaded in each one of these documents. And I want to acknowledge that there are many of us across movement leaders, many of us who are at US Campaign, who have been really bearing the brunt of understanding and experiencing the grief of what this moment all entails. I know it's super easy for us to delve deep into the strategy, but I see very honest conversations and comments left behind around how do we make sure we don't burn ourselves out? How do we make sure we sustain ourselves? And it is folks, like the many folks who are coming here who are trying to showcase and share what is it that is possible in this moment that really keeps us going. And a lot of us here work together on the daily, and it's really important for us to ensure that we're doing all that we can to uplift the work in any way possible. So I just want to emphasize that this work does not, it's not lightly taken. It's not lightly developed. It takes hours upon hours of cultivating. It takes hours upon hours of conversations and being in strategy meetings and holding together coalitions and being able to also address the emotions of the moment in this time as well. To watch our people experiencing a genocide over the last 6.5 months while also having to move forward strategically is not an easy feat. And I think it's something that we know that the weight of the world sometimes feels like it's on our back as we try to move forward and navigate. But the only way that we can ensure that we continue building up any sort of achievement in the work that we are doing is if we also choose to take care of ourselves in this moment. And so I just want to emphasize that all these resources that you're seeing, while they may take 5 to 7 minutes to talk about, take hours upon hours of work. And so I just want to give a shout out to Celine and the many other USCPR team members and Jose and Ramon and Malak who are doing all the incredible work to be able to put this work out here. So with that, I'm going to actually make sure, and again, I just until the last note, I selfishly would love to meet many of you, would love to really see all of you in Washington, D.C. on May 14th and 15th As a reminder, it is the commemoration of the Nakba, and we are 76 years and 6 months into a genocide of what's been unfolding in Gaza. To ensure that this is a moment we actually get a chance to make sure that members of Congress hear our voices, that our demands haven't shifted, our demands, regardless of the developments that even came out of this past weekend, after Israel provoked Iran. It is extremely important for us to remember that the main demand here has been to call for a total and permanent ceasefire and to end all U.S. military funding to Israel. And so come over the next couple of weeks, we will ensure that our voices are going to be heard and our demands are going to be clear as we move forward into the halls of Congress, into the streets, in front of places like Boeing, whatever it is that we're trying to do and trying to take on. Our voices are not going to are not going to be silenced. And so it's extremely crucial for us to lean in this moment. We hope that you all will join us. For the next 5 minutes, I actually want to make sure that we all collectively move forward together and take action. Again, based on the developments that have come out of this past weekend, we also know that there are additional funding packages that are being considered on the Hill in this moment, as Mohammed mentioned at the beginning of the call. It is extremely critical that in this moment right now, as Congress is debating whether or not it should send billions of dollars more in arms transfers to Israel, that we take it up into our own hands and ensure that members of Congress don't say they haven't heard our voices. And so one thing that we're going to share here is actually one of our email tools. And so we know that Congress right now, offices have closed. We want to make sure of it, but emails will be checked in the morning. And so whether or not people are in their offices, we want to make sure that our emails are going out and our demands are being made clear. I want to spend 5 minutes just kind of reviewing and taking some action. So if you've ever used our email action tool before, what we're going to do is lift it up again here and be able to, and I think it'll be dropped in the chat in a second. But I think we want to make sure, yes, it's been dropped here. So please make sure that you check in on our email tool. And for the next 5 minutes, if you've not taken action, if you have taken action before, if you've taken action 10 times, it doesn't matter. Let's make sure that we fill this in collectively. And we demand that no additional funding gets sent off to Israel in this moment. It's critical that this gets heard right now. So please take a few minutes to read over the script if you've never seen this before. But if you have, let's take action together right now. We'll check back in a couple of minutes, and then we'll wrap up our call shortly. I see so many of you who have taken action. I want to spend another minute doing it, and then we'll wrap up. Thank you all so much for taking action with us. Remember that these tools are available for your use at any time of day, at any day of the week. It is extremely critical, again, to be able to share out these sorts of tools. These are some of the easiest and most convenient ways in which we can make calls and emails to members of Congress and do what we can to ensure that, again, our members of Congress hear us. It's not, we're not in this for the first time. This is not our first time making these demands. And maybe at the start of October, people could have said, okay, well, we don't actually know what the demands of the Palestinian movement are. Perhaps that's something that they could say. As we all understand, the pro-Israel lobby is quite firm in its commitments. It's extremely strong. But we also know that the Palestinian movement has grown in tremendous strength. And for many of you to show up repeatedly over the course of the last couple of months, to be able to want to learn more around how do you go beyond just asking for these demands from your members of Congress and taking matters into your own hands. For the many of you who have joined us in demonstrations on the streets in your own localities or in DC or wherever you're coming from, a reminder that, again, every time you show up and do something, it is one more moment in which we can actually push ourselves towards achieving true and total liberation for Palestinians. I know it's tough to look it straight in the face and see what it is that's undergoing. We have watched my people die over and over again in so many different ways. But I promise you that what keeps me going, what keeps so many other Palestinians going, what keeps our cross-movement partners and colleagues going is truly knowing that we have a base behind us who is willing to also lead in the same efforts, to do the work, to lead up, to build coalitions, to start these campaigns. And again, as I mentioned at the start of this call, this is only the first of many conversations that I hope that we can all have. We hope to host these monthly. We hope that, again, if we aren't seeing you all virtually, we're seeing you in person out in the streets, joining us for the days of action. I know we got a chance to look into the resources. As a reminder, those are available for you on our Not My Tax Dollars website to look over at any point in time of day. They are for you to look into, for you to review, for you to see. And so I want to make sure that, again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and make sure that you also inform us on what other additional needs you may have. Campaigns are developing left and right at all times of day. We're also trying our best to put as much advice and suggestions forward so that people know what it is that they can use immediately. And so, again, use our resources, do whatever you can. Make sure you tune into GGJ's work. Make sure you tune into Dissenter's work and the incredible work at UC Berkeley. And we will also ensure that we spend more time on our future calls going into detail about some of this work, giving ourselves some time to actually delve deep to see what other localities are kind of doing the same thing. What are the sorts of patterns that we're seeing? We really want to use this as a space to be able to move forward together, to learn from each other, and for us to also be able to use this platform to teach one another on what's been going on, what we're seeing. Things are evolving, things are changing, developments are popping out of the ground that are constantly getting us to shift. But at the end of the day, we know that our main goal is to make sure that U.S. military funding to whether it be to Israel, to the Philippines, and wherever is ending. And which is, our call to divest from militarization is not just a call for liberation in Palestine. It's a call for all communities who have been oppressed, all communities that are facing, settler colonialism, all communities that are facing apartheid. And so I thank all of you again for joining us today. I appreciate the hundreds of you who came on, and the many of you who have tuned in just to listen to us live in this moment. And we're really excited to share more information with you. But please stay tuned, keep watching us on social media, follow our partners on social media, and we'll make sure that we talk all again really, really soon. Thanks all.